So I went to GTB, which stands for Global Team Blue, and they do global advertisement for Ford. I interviewed with Dennis Spellin. He was a graduate from the exact same program that we're all in, and had great advice for me since he's been where I have. He's been in my shoes and gave me lots of tips of how to start out and what I should do with my resume to really push myself out into the field and really grab onto something to make sure I can get my career on the right path.
I went to go see Jamie King from Tight Group, and some really cool advice, and it was really interesting to hear. I've never really thought of it this way, but he says if you're given an hour to work on something, some sort of campaign, you're only given an hour to do it. Spend 55 of those minutes identifying the problem and only 5 minutes on the execution. He's told me that the execution was really good, but the idea didn't have enough back into it. So he says really focus on the idea and the problem and the insight, and he says solutions like a last minute thing, and not last minute, but he says don't focus on it too much. He says make sure your execution revolves around the idea and not your idea around the execution.
So I went to Cassette and I met with an art director. Her name was Natalie Mathers, and it was really cool meeting a female in the industry because you don't really hear much about them. And we talked about the 3% conference that she went to in New York. She told me that, you should not be scared as a female to come up with your ideas and to really push yourself to work and not be stubborn and to do as much as possible to get yourself further into the industry.
So I went to Zulu Alpha Kilo in Toronto and met with Alan Oak, one of the creative directors, and the biggest piece I took away from it was really hammer digital, do less print, really go after the target market, which is me. So what do I want to look at? That's basically the best advice he gave me.
On November 10th, I was fortunate enough to have the privilege to have a mock interview at Ben Simon Byrne. I positioned for the role of account coordinator, and I interviewed with Sandy Truffin, the director of client services. She's really big, and that was quite an honor to meet her. Basically what we talked about is what I do at school, for my job. I'm an agency project manager. I'm in charge of managing 4 different clients split among 5 different teams. I relayed all what I do to her, and it was a pretty simple interview, just asking, what are my skills, what are some of my weaknesses. For example, I spoke about, one of my biggest weaknesses is I pay attention to a lot of details. So, on timesheets, I'll be really critical about what I jot down. Overall, it was a really good interview. I gave her a thank you notice on November 11th, and she replied just the other day, actually, thanking me for thanking her. I had really good energy, and she basically offered me an internship on the spot. It was really good. She told me to reach out to the program director and CC with her name on it, and that'll really benefit the chance of me getting there. She actually wrote an email that she wants me in for the job, so that's really exciting.
So I did my mock interview with Steve Miller from One Method, and we actually interviewed in Ben Simon Byrne because they were doing construction, but so I didn't get quite a feel of the agency, but he was really cool. One of the biggest things I took away from it was that he said experience wasn't as important as your personality and if you're hungry for it, and if you just show a genuine interest, which he said I did, which is awesome. So I think that's a major thing that I took away. I was so worried that I wouldn't have enough experience in social media, but it's kind of just if you're eager to learn, they're interested in.
I went to Apple Canada in Toronto and I went to go speak with Paul Patinios, who's the Canadian marketing manager for iTunes and Apple Music. And he gave me a lot of career advice, and he gave me some tips on my resume. He really liked the design of it, so that was really cool to hear that something that I just did, he really enjoyed, he really liked it. He gave me advice on starting big in Toronto, and then if I still want to go into a smaller agency afterwards, I can. It's just starting out big, getting your name out there, and then going to client side afterwards. But you don't necessarily have to go right into an agency. You can go client side first and go straight to Apple, even though Apple doesn't recruit. They like to recruit and approach experts instead. They can't get hired really directly out of college or university unless you go to the States. Other than that, the other career advice he gave that was just some tips and tricks that you can do when you're preparing for an interview, and different things that you can know about a company and ways that you can find out other information.
I went to Taxi and I talked to Lexi Tripper. What we did, because I wasn't really sure how it worked, but what we did when we first went in, she did a mock interview with me, and then she gave me some feedback, and then she gave me a tour of Taxi and Taxi 2. I didn't know that they were actually in the same building, and there's like a Taxi 1.5 in the middle. That's what they call it. It's not actually a thing. Some feedback that she gave me though, because I was really nervous, and it's been a while since I've actually even had an interview for work. The first question, it was literally the first question she asked me. It was describe yourself. And that's a big thing, especially if I find agencies are mainly looking for a fit in their agency rather than can you do these spreadsheets and can you organize these meetings. Like, they need to know that you work well with all of them. So I kind of botched that in the sense I don't even know how to describe myself, and I had kind of thought about it, but I hadn't really thought about it too much. So that was one of the things that I had taken away that I thought would benefit me. Overall, my experience going there was awesome. Lexi was super nice and accommodating. She said that she would hook me up with a couple emails if people were willing to, so I could talk to them about what I wanted to do and what they do every day. I would love to actually work there in the future. It's like a cute agency. Everybody's really nice there. Everyone's waving at me as I'm walking through.